With this build, one hit is all it takes to do 300 physical damage, 764 magic damage over time, and 57% of their current health. You'll reduce their spell resistance by 20%, their spell damage by 40%, and their movement speed by 82%. This video is about core winner Wyvern, but really it's all about the item. The item that is everywhere. The item that has been griefing all of your games. The item that a bunch of idiots and YouTubers are spamming, completely ruining all of your pub games. No, not that one, this one. This is the item that is broken.
It's broken!
Why is Mage Slayer broken, you ask? Well, that honestly deserves its own video, but the TLDR is this item is the return of Wraith Pact. While Wraith Pact reduces your damage output by 30%, this one cripples your magic damage output by 40%. However, it requires you to be hit by an attack by the wearer. So, it follows that the best heroes in the meta are the heroes that build it and can easily apply it to multiple heroes. Ember Spirit, Hoodwink, Pango, the list goes on. So, why not Wyvern? When you use Arctic Burn, you already want to hit as many units as possible to apply the debuff. And don't worry, if you're watching this video after Valve nerfed Mage Slayer, which they undoubtedly will, it'll still work because the build has some pretty cool synergies with some other items Valve gave us. And I promise, none of them are Conda.
Boy, ain't no way, boy.
When it comes to the draft, the worst thing about Wyvern offlane is that it doesn't offer you a frontliner and not a great initiator. That's why it's super helpful if you have a 4 or 5 that can frontline and start fights for you. The best part is, if your support sticks with you, you can make them as tanky as any core, thanks to Cold Embrace negating physical damage and Mage Slayer reducing the enemy's magic damage. For starting items, we're going to go with the Universal Special. 2 circlets, 3 branches, and a set of tangos. Alternatively, if you're up against something that spams spells, you can also go with the Greedy Carry Special, which means full wand, branches, and no regen. Just make sure to buy a set of tangos with the Bounty Rune Gold and fly it out right away. For skill build, you have 2 options. If your 4 position cannot secure range creeps for you, level Splinter Blast level 1. If your 4 position can, level Arctic Burn and hit the enemy carry off cooldown and start burning through their regen. From here, you will either max out Arctic Burn if the lane is easy and you want to pressure the enemy carry out of lane so you can take the tower. If the lane is hard, max out Splinter Blast first. This will give you ways to get CS in a hard lane, gets kills, and generally farms faster. Also consider picking up a value level of Cold Embrace at levels 2 or 4. Level 1 of Cold Embrace is insanely value, as it not only can protect heroes against physical damage, but just one level does 160 flat heal and an additional 9% max health heal on top of that. It can also be used to push towers by using it on the creep the tower is targeting. And on top of that, it also serves as a very safe and efficient way to clear waves if you get your shard. No matter the build, Wyvern offlane often works in lane because it exploits the current trend of carry greed. Carries nowadays bring minimal regen to lane, bumming off their 5 position for any needed regen. When used correctly, most uses of Wyvern Splinter Blast and Arctic Burn will hit both heroes, causing them to run out of regen fast. This also means securing Lotuses is very important in winning the regen battle. You'll emphasize that even more with your buildup of items, Double Bracer, Magic Wand, and Brown Boots. This will give you the damage and stats in lane you need to have an easier time CSing. If you go without boots in favor of stat items early, be sure to keep the enemy carry low and afraid of going on you. Once you have these items, even your physical damage is a menace to carry and support. You can look to counter-rotate on tower dives to turn around fights, but you mostly want to farm until you hit your big timing. Level 10 for the 35 damage talent, and Mage Slayer. You can consider phase boots if you really want to be aggressive or need the armor, but you're gonna want boots of travels later on. Once you have level 10 in Mage Slayer, you are pretty strong.
Hey there, I heard that you're strong!
You hit for 150 damage, have 1200 HP with 7 armor and 50% magic resistance. If you tag them with Mage Slayer, you take very little magic damage, and Cold Embrace can block a bunch of physical damage. This is the start, but it only gets better from here. For the next item, you have a few options. All of these are smaller stat items like Dragon Lance, Hurricane Pike, Blink Dagger, or Witchblade. Dragonlance is exceptionally stat efficient for universal heroes and helps you reach some backline heroes. Upgrading it to Hurricane Pike will help you a lot if you're being targeted heavily by melee heroes. Blink Dagger gives you initiating power if the enemy tends to clump a lot and helps stay one step ahead of heroes that like to jump backline. Witchblade is likely the best item though, as the build-up and stats on it are amazing for Wyvern and it significantly amps up your single target damage. This is because Witchblade's damage is based off your intelligence. Well, Wyverns, who gains 2.8 intelligence per level. While that's not a massive amount, Mage Slayer adds 10 intelligence, Witchblade itself adds another 12, and you'll be getting more intelligence items with your following items. Leading to that, your next big timing is Aghanim Scepter. Aghanim Scepter for Wyvern removes the cooldown and lets you toggle Arctic Burn while giving you 25% movement speed while active. The most important part of this upgrade though is that every hit during Arctic Burn will reapply the debuff. No more refractory period.
Oh, I'm fucking...
Aghanims is also pretty stat efficient, makes you even tankier, and you can now harass heroes anytime you want. Abuse fights around cliffs and be sure to stay in the back line, hitting multiple heroes when you can to apply Mage Slayer and Arctic Burn. Don't forget, you can save your supports with Cold Embrace. Winter's Curse is there whenever you need it, but don't feel rushed to use it. Your biggest threat most of the time is your damage over time with Arctic Burn and Mage Slayer. Onto the mid game and the final part of your one-shot, one-kill build, sponsored by Parasma. Parasma may sound like a medication for gonorrhea, but it's basically Witchblade on steroids.
I call this little number
Parasma.
This item is another meta item that is letting intelligence cores and universal casters scale by giving their right clicks a huge damage threat while also buffing up the magic damage they do. It keeps scaling as you get more items and levels while making it so your magic damage doesn't fall off. Game still not over? Time for the late game and your next super cool new item, Revenant's Brooch. Yeah, you'd be forgiven for thinking this item is new even though it was released almost 2 years ago. But believe me when I say that this item is nuts late game and it's a perfect item for Winter Wyvern. The reason for this plays into the nerf that killed Winter Wyvern core the first time. The nerf states that you can no longer do physical damage to the unit, but in exchange, your magic damage to that target is amped up by 30%. So, using Revenant's Brooch, your physical attacks turn into magic, which, thanks to that 30%, means that heroes with only default magic resistance are taking almost full damage from every hit with very little reduction. Oh, and don't forget, that's also benefiting from Parasma lowering your magic resistance as well. Oh, and Parasma itself is dealing scaling magic damage, and your Arctic Burn is percentage-based magic damage. Oh, and you can even throw in Bloodthorn, which does 60 magic damage each hit, and then activates at the end for even more magic damage. So much magic! Mechanics, tips, and tricks. Winter's Curse not only applies a 30% magic damage amplification, but also applies a basic dispel to the target. Something to keep in mind when dealing with certain heroes like Omni Knight, items like Solar Crest, or any mid-hero with power runes. Winter's Curse lasts half the duration if no enemy unit is in the AoE. If an enemy enters into the Curse AoE anytime during this window, it will last the full duration. If a unit is ever taunted by Winter's Curse, it remains taunted for the full duration, meaning it will chase the target even if the target moves. The AoE is also centered around the target, so if the target moves, so does the AoE, catching new heroes in the process. Most passive abilities don't work when you're taunted and hitting an ally, so don't expect any crits, lifesteals, orbs, or item procs from the enemy during Winter's Curse. This also means it's a pretty dope satanic counter. The AoE taunt of Winter's Curse doesn't apply to spell immune units, but the single target stun does. Therefore, oftentimes the best use of this spell mid to late game is to target a core that uses BKB in the fight while catching any surrounding heroes in the taunt. Arctic Burn, Witchblade, and Parasma all begin to apply their damage 1 second after their initial hit. This means, to maximize your damage, you want to apply the debuff to a unit first and immediately curse after, taking advantage of the 30% magic damage amp. Just don't get too greedy with it. This tip is probably my favorite one. While Winter's Curse does amplify magic damage, it won't work for magic damage tied to attacks like MKB or the initial Mjolnir hit. Interestingly, the bounces of Mjolnir are separate from your attack and act as normal magic damage. But instead of MKB, try Bloodthorn. When activated, the 60 damage from each attack isn't tied to your auto attack, so it works during Curse and is amped by 30%. That said, the 60 damage per hit is tied to your hero, which means other heroes and units, both allied and enemy, do the damage too. Combine this with Bloodthorn having almost the same duration as later levels of Winter's Curse, this makes for insane damage during the Curse, but even better burst damage when the Bloodthorn expires during the Curse, getting amped by 30%. Thanks for watching the video, guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it and you'll actually win some MMR off of it. Please, it really helps if you guys like, comment, and subscribe. If this is actually successful, then I will try and do more of them in the future. So please, if you want to see more of this, do those things for me. Thank you.